Well, it's 30 days and counting to the Iowa caucus, and right now, Texas Senator Ted Cruz trying to solidify his lead in that all-important first voting state. Well, according to Real Clear Politics, look at that. Mr. Cruz is leading the national frontrunner Donald Trump by 3.6 points in the average of all the polls. Well, the Texas senator is set to begin a 36-county, week-long bus tour in Iowa, starting that on Monday, to try and build on his momentum there, while Mr. Trump promises to spend $2 million a week and, in his words, run the table and win. So, can he catch Cruz, or will the Texas senator pull away with even a bigger lead? Well, Vince Colanese is the executive editor of the Daily Caller and joins us from Washington now. So, Vince, what does Donald Trump have to do in order to get the people to the caucus? Because, you know, it's going to be freezing. They're going to be 1,000 different places throughout the state, and some of these folks never did that before.
Right, and that's the big issue for Donald Trump, is that so many of the voters that he's looking to tap into are people who are considered irregular primary voters. That is, people who don't normally vote in a primary. Donald Trump has a lot of support among people who are not college students and college educated, and those who are college educated tend to be the ones who go out for these primary votes.
Assuming that they're more fired up, it takes a lot of work and time to find out where this place is, where you go. Then you're going to go and sit for a few hours and listen to the speeches before you cast your ballot. But could that work in his favor versus what some experts think could be his detriment?
Well, he might be able to do it. He's got the machinery in Iowa for sure. If you talk to any insider who's been following the Iowa GOP race, they can tell you Donald Trump has one of the most robust organizations. And flooding the airways with $2 million in advertising is a big play, especially for a candidate who's buying ads directly. This versus, say, a super PAC who's buying ads. A candidate has a lot of advantages. He gets the lowest rate on the rate card for television advertising, and he gets guaranteed placement. He really could flood the zone. But he's going up against a guy who also has a lot of money, Ted Cruz, and this is a two-way race with a lot of money in one state. And Donald Trump really has his work cut out for him if he plans on winning that state. And
Cruz is starting the Cruising to the Caucus tour, is what they call it, day after tomorrow. I mean, if you're there on the ground, as you are this senator, he's really caught on fire in that state and has been leading.
Yes, and people care a tremendous amount about the retail politics that Ted Cruz is undertaking. He wants to win Iowa because Iowa traditionally is a great filtering and winnowing process. Many candidates, we expect, will begin to consider either leaving the race or will leave the race after Iowa and New Hampshire especially. And going into New Hampshire, a lot of New Hampshire voters are waiting to see what happens in Iowa. Remember, this is something important to know about the poll numbers. It isn't until the last week in Iowa and New Hampshire generally that half of the voters are going to make a decision about who they support. That means on the table are 50% of the people who are going to go out to those caucuses or those primaries and make a decision. And right now, we don't know who they're going to support, no matter what the poll numbers say.
Well, that's an interesting fact that they really wait to the end. But look what's happening in Iowa. I got the Des Moines Register editorial. They call Donald Trump Teflon Donald. And look what they wrote. Republican presidential candidate Donald Trump moved into second place in Iowa caucus polling in late July. He's been there or leading the field outright ever since. His prolonged popularity has surprised the political world and continued despite a string of impolite opinions, inflammatory comments, and freewheeling insults. What strikes me about that is that the paper points out that he moved into second place and has basically stayed there. And this is a newspaper that called him to drop out in July and called him a jerk, like a jerk at a bar, yet he still stays in. What makes him defy all these status quo expectations?
Well, he's defied gravity in a lot of ways in politics, especially because this is a guy who at one point said, how stupid are the people of Iowa, when he began to lose his edge there. I'm surprised that just hasn't taken him down in the state specifically. It would other candidates. But Donald Trump defies gravity in a lot of ways. He really has tried to court evangelicals. He went through, I believe, a several-year process of going after Bob Vanderplaats, who is a big evangelical supporter in the state, who gave his endorsement, by the way, to Ted Cruz, not to Donald Trump. And he's persisted in the state so far, and I think he's gotten a lot of people out to his rallies, and people are paying attention. It's hard to avoid Donald Trump, whether or not you see him in advertising, you see him on TV.
And the question is, can those people in the rallies actually go up and show up? Finally, Jeb Bush. I mean, look, he's got to do something in New Hampshire.
Yes.
He's sitting on, what, $100 million or so, more or less, and he's taking, we're told, resources from other states and pouring them into the early states. What is his test? What does he have to do? And does he have to come in 3 in New Hampshire or better? What do you predict?
I think 3 is probably a respectable number for Jeb Bush. By the way, that is an aggressive number now at this point for him to achieve because he's slipped so much in the polls. But New Hampshire is where Jeb Bush is focusing all of his energy. He's doubled his staff. He's taking people from the warm confines of Miami and throwing them up into the cold in New Hampshire and putting them to work in hopes that he can actually do something.
And what if he's further behind?
If he's further behind, it seems unlikely that he'll be able to continue in the race. New Hampshire is make or break for anybody who's considered an establishment candidate. Jeb Bush, chief among them.
All right, well, that's about 6 weeks from now, so we've got a very busy 6 weeks. We'll be covering it all here on the Fox News Channel. I know Vince will see you again.
See you soon.
As we discuss all of this. Happy New Year. Thank you.
Happy New Year.
Right. Arthel?
And Eric and Vince, meanwhile, Donald Trump's comments about Muslims apparently being used as a recruiting tool for a terrorist group. Al-Qaeda's Somali-based Al-Shabaab group reportedly releasing a new video urging African Americans and Muslims in the U.S. to join their cause. It features a clip of Mr. Trump calling for a ban on all Muslims from entering America. And this comes after Hillary Clinton claimed during last month's Democratic debate, well, that Trump's words were being used by ISIS to enlist followers. Trump responded, though, by calling Hillary a liar.
Well, another question tonight, Arthel, is the U.S. sending mixed signals to Tehran about their ballistic missile program? You know, some critics of the Iranian nuclear deal are asking that after the administration delays some new sanctions, even after Iran fired some missiles. What is going on?
Also, the swollen Mississippi River pushing downstream at 10 times the speed of Niagara Falls today.